So we are informed that the Irish people are in the midst of a very serious hate crisis, that you are filled with hatreds, that the hate is increasing in your hearts. And yet the strangest thing, I've been going around Dublin last few days interviewing people at the ice cream store, on the streets. Are you experiencing a hate crisis, I ask? Is there increasing hatred of racial and sexual minorities in Ireland? Are there mobs forming to force out the foreigners' deep hatreds? No, they say. No, nobody says. They say, no, I think, in fact, I think there's less hate of racial and sexual minorities that we've ever had in Ireland. Think back to my parents and my grandparents. It was just the opposite of what we were told. There is no hate crisis in Ireland. What about this idea that the hatred is causing an increase of violence against those groups? That's why apparently there needs to be new legislation to crack down on all this hatred, is that there's some evidence of a link between hatred on social media platforms, on the internet, and in the real world. And yet nobody can find any evidence of this. There's no evidence of increasing violence really at all, any significant trend over time. In fact, we know that in Ireland, like all Western countries, violence has declined precipitously over the years. Huge declines in violence. So what is going on in Ireland? Well, one possibility is that somebody wants the power to censor speech they don't like in Ireland and wants to control what you're allowed to say and read and speak and hear online. And that maybe it's not a coincidence that it's happening here in Ireland. Maybe there's something about Ireland that is special in the world. What might that be? Well, maybe it's the fact that you are home to all of the world's biggest tech corporations and a source of so much of the wealth. We're right there on the docks. We're seeing this incredible, beautiful development, the incredible wealth of Ireland. But this desire to be able to send the police into people's homes and read their phones and computers, maybe, just maybe, they want in particular to be able to do that with the people working at those tech companies. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, I grant you. We said it early. We said all of these efforts to crack down on censorship, the censorship industrial complex that we've documented around the world. Maybe the goal is to try to censor the entire internet. It sounds absurd. It sounds like a Black Mirror episode. They'd be picking a small country where all these high-tech companies are as a way to create a backdoor into censorship. And yet that fear was fantastically realized just a few weeks ago in Australia, where the e-safety commissioner, again, a title that only you would see in a Black Mirror episode, said that Elon Musk must take down a violent video from Twitter, not just in Australia, but around the world. What about in Brazil, a country I love very much, lived in 30 years ago? The Supreme Court justice there, who's the top censor in the country, said these independent journalists and politicians must be banned. Not just their tweets and posts censored, they must be banned on every single social media platform, including ones where they hadn't even posted any information. In one case, a member of the Brazilian Congress named Marcel Van Hatten tweeted, he was accused of, and the government went to the social media companies and said he must be banned, or what they say deplatformed, from all these platforms because of election misinformation. Except for it wasn't election misinformation. He was talking about labor issues. The posts he put out after the elections, and he had never posted them to Twitter, now X, and yet they demanded that he be deplatformed from X. What's going on here exactly? Well, happily, there are some whistleblowers who have come forward. They delivered a trove of information to us last year, and the initial version of this was called the Cyber Threat Intelligence League, and it was created at the behest of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. which was created after 9/11 to unite intelligence agencies in the United States to unify the intelligence and now supposedly provide cybersecurity, but they tucked a secret censorship initiative inside of the cybersecurity. This is one of the tactics that you'll want to keep an eye on. And in that process, they had a little handbook they created. All of this we've published, by the way. You can find it by Googling Cyber Threat Intelligence League, Public, Substack.com, Shellenberger, Guten Tag, my colleague, Matt Taibbi. We wrote about this. And they created a little handbook. And sure enough, in that handbook, they describe that the goal here is to deplatform the disinformation super spreaders, of whom my friend Marcel von Hatten is one. So it sounds like a conspiracy theory. It sounds like a Black Mirror episode, but it's happening right here in Ireland. And that's why we're here in Ireland, because we believe in the people of Ireland, and we believe that you have a rebellious spirit inside of you, that you do not want to be slaves. You do not want to be serfs again. You do not want to be controlled by the censorship industrial complex. This is not an issue that should concern people where they sit on the left-right spectrum. Free speech was something that united those of us that were on the radical left in the 1980s and 1990s with people on the liberal left in the 1980s and 90s. This is a fundamentally human desire to be able to speak our minds and hear what we want to hear. There is no hate crisis in Ireland on the part of the people. If there is a hate crisis, it's coming from the elites. It's not the construction workers, the people bagging your groceries or driving your Uber or taxi cabs that are demanding censorship of their fellow humans. It's the snobs. It's the ones with the PhDs. There's a legitimate debate to be had over many issues around migration, crime, gender. There's a serious reconsideration of what's by many viewed as gender medical mistreatment. There's good people on all sides of these issues. That debate has to be had. That debate must not be shut down. Similarly, how will you know if someone has tried to steal the election, if the government is censoring all accusations of electoral interference? What about racial disparities? There's racial disparities. Racial disparities exist. We might think they exist for a variety of different reasons. Do we really want the government deciding that even having a conversation about racial disparities is hate speech? That's where this is headed. And if you think I'm exaggerating, consider that for months people had been accusing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada of lying about their censorship legislation. No, certainly it wouldn't affect your social media posts, they said. It just came out a few days ago that, in fact, they would have the power. The government itself said in court they would have the power to censor your social media posts. The good news is that is not the end of the story. Simply calling what they're doing censorship, rather than buying into the gigantic lie that they are fighting misinformation. There's the two qualities of narcissism are entitlement and grandiosity. And those two traits are in abundance in the people that want to decide what you can say and read online. And people don't like it. And the good news is that the public is with us, and they're more with us when we can say what it is, call it out for what it is. And that movement is growing around the world. In Brazil, we posted the Twitter files in Brazil, and there was a moment of truth where Elon Musk had to decide whether he was going to side with the lawyers and the censors or with the people of Brazil, and he chose the people of Brazil. And if it weren't for Elon Musk and Twitter, we would have no idea about what they have planned for us. And thank God they gave him another $50 billion last week. That covers the cost of him buying Twitter, and now there's no excuses at all to bend to censorious advertisers that want to tell you what you can think and cannot think. So our movement is growing. We're up against some serious trends that are going in the wrong direction. This desire for censorship that comes from the public is real. The concept creep, the idea, the expanding view of what causes harm. My mother, who grew up on a farm in the Midwest, and kids died of measles, and brothers and sisters lost fingers and the farm equipment. Very different idea of harm than what my kids will consider harm online. But I think when you have the conversation, when you offer people the choice of whether you want to live like slaves or live as free people, they will choose to live as free people. So we are here to begin a new rebellion from Dublin to demand our free speech rights, and we're not going to stop. Thank you guys very much.